Thank you to the India Foundation and the Center of Soft Power for the invitation. And brothers and sisters of India and all around the world, it's very good to be here to cooperate in this very worthwhile effort to develop and promote the fine culture of India. Now, I'd like to start with a little prayer which the Vice President of India sounded. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. May all be happy. May all be without disease. May all creatures have well-being, and none have misery of any kind. And this may all be happy is an important theme that I think will run through this whole question of our soft power. I will look at three important elements of a culture: language, the Sanskrit language; education, and this is the focus of it; and the spiritual tradition as manifested in the literature, the fine spiritual literature. And I think there's one other thing here that we need to keep in mind, because I'm going to speak about the great benefits that have been accrued through teaching children Sanskrit from the very beginning, other people learning Sanskrit and having access to this tremendous wealth of spiritual knowledge as well as this fine language. But when you're considering soft power, I think one thing is very important, and that is the bhavana, the motive behind. You could say, yes, we'd like to have more soft power to better influence the world, etc. And yes, that's fine, but I think it's better that the whole motive behind it is simply to share it, to share the wealth so that all can be happy. And when that is done in that way, there will be the influence, quite naturally. So, look at this language of India, Sanskrit. The word Sanskriti means cultured, so I think it's very appropriate that it's one of the key elements of soft power. It's a classical language of the finest quality, the source of many of the Indo-European languages, including Greek, Latin, English, as many of the Indian languages. And learning Sanskrit helps one to learn other languages quickly and more completely. So there's a number of practical aspects here as well. Other benefits include the orderly grammar, fine orderly grammar, which helps encourage clear logical thinking. There's the precise sounds about the language and helps sharpen the listening and the speech skills. And most importantly, I find, is to help develop a more in-depth understanding of the spiritual tradition that's manifest. Now, in the past, the impact of Sanskrit has had a great effect on the West. So it was first recognized as a power in the 19th century. Some early advocates, William Jones, more perfect than Greek, more copious than Latin, more exquisitely refined than either. There is a Western philosopher acknowledging the finest quality of this language. Schopenhauer, I believe that the influence of the Sanskrit literature will penetrate not less deeply than did the revival of Greek literature in the 15th century. Now, I've been doing some study. I don't have time to to really discuss it. But we're in a periods of cultural cycle. And the cycle of India's culture is moving towards a renaissance. It's begun and it will continue. And Sanskrit and access to these great traditional works will help fuel this. Max Muller. Sanskrit is to the science of language what mathematics is to astronomy. It's very fine. Now, when we speak of the literature, these texts, the Vedas, the Shruti, the Upanishads, Smriti, the Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, for me, the Bhagavad Gita has been the real opening up. When I was first exposed to it, I thought this is so beautiful, not only philosophic, but giving practical guidance in life. Not only speaking about Dharma, but helping to understand our true nature. And that's what prompted me to study Sanskrit, to want to go in more depth to it. Now, the Bhagavad Gita in itself has made a great impression in the West. Ralph Waldo Emerson. You can see some of these things. The key part, I find, is where he speaks about a voice of an old intelligence, which in another age and climate has pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise us. In other words, the same issues are being addressed. And Aldous Huxley, when he speaks about it being the most clearest and most comprehensive summary of the perennial philosophy, the unchanging, common to all. Hence, its enduring value not only for the Indians, but also for mankind. So here again, by making it more available, we are contributing to the happiness of all. Because anyone who does really connect with this will begin to understand better their true and beautiful self. Now, Mr. Modi has produced a 10-year plan for the modernization and integration of the teaching of Sanskrit in schools in India from the very beginning right up to the university level. And in that report is this statement about how both Gandhi and Vivekananda recommended very strongly that Sanskrit be studied. And it says in the report, every effort should be made to make Vivekananda's and Gandhi's vision a reality. These are great teachers. They've seen, they know. And I think it would be very worthwhile to follow that guidance. Let's look at now the context in which we've learned. St. James' School in London was founded in 1975. Now, a little background. The organization behind it is called the School of Economic Science, and they were founded in the 1930s to try and understand the natural laws governing society, the Dharma. And they worked on that and then moved into philosophy. And in the 1960s, they were blessed with an introduction to a great sage, Sri Shantananda Saraswati, who was the Shankaracharya of the North in Jyotirmat. And the leader of the school would go there every 2 years, and His Holiness would simply answer questions. They weren't trying to convert him. They said, you must use your own culture. But as the answers kept coming, and he explored all different areas, Sanskrit came out, the commonality between the different traditions came out, and many people in this school started to study Sanskrit. And then in 1975, they founded this primary school in London, and Sanskrit, from the very beginning, was the basis of teaching all the languages. And it was a mandatory part of this primary school curriculum. Now that's a real example of abhaya, fearlessness, to start a school in London in 1975 with mandatory part of your curriculum being the study of Sanskrit. It's worked. It has worked. The students are exposed to the beautiful and profound Sanskrit literature in the original form from 4 years old, and they sound the shlokas with the English meaning as well. It's not just random. They learn the meanings as well. So, what we've discovered, it really does work in helping establish greater clarity and accuracy in thinking, reading, and speaking. And this is the key point. The communication skills that are enhanced through the study of Sanskrit is something that's extremely important and practical. This is the practical dimension to it. And it's enhanced, especially for young people entering university, then going into business and into a very diverse global world. Communication skills are crucial, and this study of Sanskrit we have seen does work. The other part is the Sanskrit texts used that were developed by the teachers use the stories from the Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and they're presented so that the students are getting beautiful philosophic teaching, but also teaching that's very practical. The teachers worked for more than 20 years to develop and get accepted the equivalent to Year 10 and Year 12 exams. Because St. James Schools now has more than 1,000 pupils right up through the senior level. So they worked on these exams. And Cambridge now has decided that the Year 10 exam, called IGCSE, will become a standard exam, and Cambridge will promote it globally. They've seen the value of it, and it will be promoted globally. Unfortunately, there weren't enough numbers for the Year 12 exam, but we're trying to look for other alternatives to that. St. James also teachers spent 20 years developing textbooks, developing them, testing them, using them. And I was in charge of the publishing at St. James, and I took a group to the first World Sanskrit Book Fair in Bangalore. And I took 300 books, and I laid them out on the stand, and they were sold on the first day. And in the stand opposite was Motilal Banarsidass, looking, very interesting. Since 2012, they've published them. And the books are about stories of Krishna, Rama. More than 50,000 of these books have been sold since then, or at least published. That's the Rama. Beautiful books. People like them for two reasons. Yes, the content, but secondly, it was a very systematically and simply presented with some very good illustrations. Now, when the books were published in India, the Motilal went to a renowned Sanskrit expert here in India, and he read the books very carefully. And he said, after this careful, I am convinced of their utility for the Indian schools, well graded, supported by appropriate illustrations, etc. So the bridge has been made. It's not us. We just are responding and not trying to do it our way. This is our appropriate presentation of the way we were taught. We have very dedicated teachers. This is Elena and Warwick Jessup, who are the current authors of the books. The children do beautiful writing. They really love it. It's a very popular subject. It's not forced upon people. And in 2010, St. James students were invited to chant Vedic hymns in the presence of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace to celebrate the beginning of the Commonwealth Games. And can we play the video, just a short excerpt from it? It's available online. Go ahead. Okay. I'll just give you a taste of it. Now, next slide. No, just, you've got more. Go ahead. The St. James schools, they've supported other schools in South Africa. Now, one more short video. This is when Mr. Modi visited this school in Ireland, and he was welcomed by these students. Let's give it a brief look. Okay. See, happiness of all, you see? Okay, next. Okay. Now, just a final summary. Sanskrit at St. James, and that's what I'm the director of, is a soft power agent. This is how we see ourselves. Our aim, we founded in 2012, is to support and promote the teaching of Sanskrit in schools on a global basis. And we're developing new materials, we're training teachers, a lot of online material. We are very supported, here we go, by the ICCR. They've been supporting us, as have the Indian High Commissioners. This is an example of a conference we ran, a joint conference on the contemporary relevance of the Bhagavad Gita. So, here's the summary. Thousands of young people in the West have benefited greatly from the study of Sanskrit language and the Indian literature. It's worked. And we weren't selling it, we were just presenting it. They've benefited intellectually, practically, and spiritually. And that's an important aspect. Now, so we're most grateful to India for this language and the literature, two jewels of your culture. It's our hope, though, that the modern educational world in India will begin to give greater emphasis and support to the study of Sanskrit. To have real power, it must be fully experienced here in India, physically, intellectually, and spiritually. When that happens, and I think the trend is, all will benefit. There will be less misery and disease around the world. All will be happy. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.